Okay, so first let's go over how to access your purchase invoices. So electronic invoices, first of all, or EPIs that originate in Prima will have a preset configurable format, such as 4 characters or however you want to set it up. And that's going to be listed in your header notes. So to access that, we go to invoicing, purchase invoice. Just do a quick search to show you what I'm talking about. So your header notes column is where your purchase order number will show up here. And again, that's configurable. If you want to set that up in a preset sequence or a certain format, we can do that for you. Just keep in mind that all non-electronic vendors will have their own purchase order format, so their formats will vary so that there's no confusion. And again, to access, we just went into invoicing purchase invoices. So now that we're in here, let's take a look at some of our filters by clicking on the color bar back there. Obviously, you can search by vendor, vendor order number, product code, but mainly we want to focus on our statuses, which is going to be the 3 listed here. And we're going to go over what these mean shortly. And the type, you have your manual, which you create from scratch through available lines, and your electronic, which come through electronically through Ascendant and SPR. So your day-to-day operation, you're mainly going to be dealing with your electronic invoices. So I'm going to preset that filter by clicking on Outstanding and Complete. We can right-click on the person icon there, and I'll maximize that. Right-click on the person. Oops. When you right-click, there's a little box that jumps to the second screen. So I'll click on New Filter. We'll name that. I'll name it EPI. So now every time you come in, you won't have to go in there and set those filters, and you can save as many filters as you like with as many presets as you like by doing that. Okay, so let's go over those statuses now before we go into the invoices. So the outstanding statuses, they have not matched, and we'll go over the reasons that they don't match and how to correct that. They're completed, but for some reason they have not gone over to QuickBooks, and we'll review the causes for that. And posted is all good. They've been matched and sent over to QuickBooks, so we don't have to address those. That's why we left them out of the search. So now that I have my electronic filter set in place, we can go into some invoices and look at some of the reasons that they don't match automatically. So the first reason would be that there's no purchase order in the system. And this happens when an purchase order was called or placed on the web. All you need to do is create a purchase order to match it, and that's done by clicking New Record and Purchase Order. Next on the list, we have product codes do not match. Now, if we have a product code that doesn't match, we can fix that by going into one of these outstanding purchase orders. We go into our Lines tab. You'll see the status of the 3 X's here. That indicates that this item does not have a match. So we'll highlight that line, and we'll go to our Match Item button here. Once we're in here, we want to toggle or activate our search by going in the drop-down. It defaults to 50%. If we drop it down 1 to 40, you'll see this does yield a result. It's always a good idea to note that purchase order number before you go in. So we go to our header here. It's 1116, lines, highlight, match item, trigger our search. And we're looking for that purchase order and that item number. So we have our purchase order number here and our item number there. There's the item, just match it. It's that simple. From there, we can go ahead and complete it. And just keep in mind that this is not on EDC, so it's not going to show posted or anything like that. The next reason would be the codes on the invoice are not present on the order. In this case, you want to check with your vendor. This is another instance where you may have called in or placed an order on the web. When you call a vendor, just match with whatever existing PO they have. Just keep in mind when you call them, you want to provide the Prima the Prima purchase order number so that they have a match when it comes over. Another common reason for not matching or completing would be quantities or pack size do not match. As you know, vendors will sometimes send an extra quantity to fulfill an order. In other words, if you order 15, but they only sell packs of 10, they'll send 2 packs of 10 and of course charge you for them. You'll have a purchase order for the 15. You just need to create a new purchase order for the additional 5. So another common reason that we have non-matches and non-completions in purchase orders would be the prices outside of the variance or our tolerance. All that means is that we have a preset amount that would allow each line on the order to vary. So in other words, the default is 10 cents. Anything outside of 10 cents variance will not match, and you would have to fix that manually. Now that tolerance or default is adjustable in the admin. I have that open here. It's in our system keys, tolerance system keys, and you see invoice tolerance in pence. Just double click that. The default again is 10 cents, but you can change that to whatever you like. Save and close. It's also worth pointing out while we're in here to make sure that your autocomplete purchase invoices is set to yes. That'll save you a lot of time there. All right, next on our list is our purchase line is already matched to another invoice. And this is when a manual invoice is created, and we're going to touch on that shortly. And that's done in available lines. So when you're in available lines, you want to make sure that you're not addressing any electronic vendors. You want to leave SPR and send it out because they come over electronically. So if we build one manually, you will have a duplicate. Now, if that happens, it's not the end of the world. Each organization has an internal process for maintaining their invoices. Just follow your internal process as to how to delete an invoice, and that can be done for you. And last on our list is our purchase orders are stuck at a status of awaiting acknowledgement. In that case, you just want to go to your purchase order and just simply click on progress to receipt, and that'll take care of that. So now let's look at building a manual purchase invoice. So now that we're in our invoicing module, we'll go to available lines. Again, you can search by vendor. You just want to make sure again that you're not including SPR or Ascendant because they're already done automatically. Always make sure that receipted only is checked. In this case, we're not going to add any filters. We're just going to do an all-inclusive search. And we can filter by vendor, ignoring our electronic vendors. We'll highlight this one here and just select all lines. So that has created a manual invoice, non-electronic. So I would like to go into some very important fields in these because they are not automated as much as the electronic ones. So I just want to point out a couple of important fields here. So when you're in a manually created purchase invoice, you want to make sure in the header tab that the vendor invoice number is addressed. You see that's highlighted, that's required, as well as the vendor invoice date. In all likelihood, you have an invoice in front of you there, so that should be pretty easy to look up. We'll save that. Next on the list would be our line total and invoice total. These have to match or you won't be able to complete. And that's just to make sure that there's no errors before it's sent over to QuickBooks. I'd also like to add that if you go to your lines tab here, you can amend your cost or prices. And you can also add an item like freight in most cases by clicking on the new icon. Just put in your freight code, description, quantity of 1, and your price. It's also a good idea to match that nominal to wherever you want it to land in QuickBooks. So we'll put that under delivery or freight. If it's not listed, it's pretty simple to add an additional nominal for you. Once those are added, we'll save. Just keep in mind that if you've already matched the totals here, that total will change if you add an additional line. So we'll just add that same amount at the bottom. Save. Now we can complete. And that's pretty much it. That wraps up our forum for the day. We'll now open the floor for questions. I will take everyone off of mute.